Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. I'm Hasham Ali Khan. Last two videos we are discussing about AS10, Accounting Standard 10. This is the last video on this accounting standard. It's a lengthy accounting standard compared to other AS. Because in this accounting standard 10, so many regulations are given, so many provisions are given regarding the plant, property and equipment. In this video, actually first video on AS10, I've explained you about the scope or purpose of that AS10. That means AS10 is applied for accounting treatment of recognition of the asset, finding out the carrying amount, how to disclose the carrying amount, how the depreciation is calculated, and what is the impairment loss. So all these things we have covered in first video on this AS10. Second video I've explained about the recognition, initial recognition and subsequent recognition. So all those points already I have covered in the first two videos. In this third and last video, I'm going to explain you about depreciation, which is an integral part of this AS10. So if you have not watched the first two videos, I suggest you to go to the playlist of my channel, select the subject accounting standard, select the videos of AS10, watch the first two videos, be perfect, then you come to the third video. So before starting the explanation of this AS10, take the screenshot of the points which I have written on the board, then I'll explain all the points in detail. Now, AS10, Property, Plant and Equipment, PPE. This part is regarding depreciation. Actually, AS10 has given elaborate provisions regarding depreciation, because depreciation is a very important aspect of the financial statements, in the income statement as well as in the balance sheet. In the statement of profit or loss, it's a very important item because it will affect the profit. Similarly, this depreciation will be deducted from that asset, concerned asset, in the balance sheet. So it will affect both. That means profit and loss statement as well as in balance sheet. So AS10 has given a lot of provisions regarding this depreciation. First of all, few provisions of AS10. If an asset is made up of parts and that have significant cost, then such parts should be depreciated separately. First provision given in the AS10. If an asset consists of different parts and each part is a significant part of the cost, then each part should be charged depreciation separately. Then second one, parts that have identical useful life and depreciation method can be grouped together. If some assets are there which are very identical and the same method of depreciation will be applied, so instead of calculating separate depreciation, group it, because all the assets are similar in nature and same method of depreciation. Third one, parts that do not have a significant value individually may be grouped together and depreciated together using approximation technique. Suppose if an asset consists of smaller parts, but all the smaller parts are so insignificant that it will be difficult to calculate depreciation on each single part. So what we'll do, we'll group up all the insignificant small parts of the asset and apply some approximation technique to calculate the depreciation. The last one, depreciation charge for each period is recognized in the statement of profit and loss for that period. That means every year depreciation should be charged on property, plant and equipment, and it should be taken in the statement of profit or loss. These are the basic provisions given under AS10. Now further we will move depreciable amount and depreciation period. So many provisions are given regarding depreciable amount and depreciation period. The first point given in AS10 is depreciation is a factor of useful life of an asset which is dependent on. So this depreciation is one of the factors, and it considers a number of factors. What are the factors? First one, expected usage of the asset. Depreciation depends on the usage. If the usage is more, naturally depreciation will also be more. Example, if the car is used in the taxi, depreciation will be more. If the car is used in ordinary business, then depreciation will be less. So depreciation depends on the usage. Second point, technical commercial obsolescence. Obsolescence means outdated. If the asset is such that it is very frequently becoming obsolete, outdated, then more depreciation is required. Presently, due to the advancement in technology, many items, many equipments are becoming outdated due to obsolescence, outdated. So technology should also be considered. Next one is wear and tear, usage. If the asset is more used, more depreciation, because more usage, more depreciation. Less usage, less depreciation. So wear and tear means usage. Now legal limits on usage of the asset, expiry date. Sometimes the asset will bear an expiry date. That means there is a legal compulsion to depreciate because there is a legal time frame given. After that, it will become expired. So this factor should also be considered. The useful life of an asset can be shorter than its economic life. Hence, assets have a residual value. Sometimes the economic life will be more, but the actual usage value, or we can say useful life of the asset, is less. Example, a machine. The machine has an economic life of 10 years, but the useful life in the business is 8 years. The asset can be used only for 8 years, but the economic life is 10 years. In that case, we will have a residual value. That means after using the asset for 8 years, after 8 years we can be able to sell it away. It will have some commercial value. So this residual value will arise whenever useful life is less than the economic life. Next one is the residual value and the useful life of an asset should be reviewed at least at each financial year end. At the end of each year, it has to be reviewed how much would be the still useful life and what would be the residual value. So it should be evaluated, considered at the end of each accounting year. If there is any change, it should be accounted for as a change in accounting estimate as per AS 5. Already in the previous videos, we have discussed about accounting standard 5. That is the net profit or loss for the period, prior period items and changes in the accounting policies. In that we have seen that if any change in the method of depreciation, that is a change in the method of estimate, and it should be reported. Then the depreciable amount of an asset should be allocated on a systematic basis over its useful life. That is the definition of depreciation. Depreciable amount should be spread over the useful life of the asset in a systematic manner. Then repairs and maintenance of an asset does not negate the need for depreciate it. There is no relationship between repair and maintenance and depreciation. So if a company, if an enterprise says we are incurring a lot of expenditure on repair and maintenance, then what is the need of depreciation? No, it's not like that. Even after spending the money on repair and maintenance, still there is a need for depreciation. Depreciation is mandatory, compulsory, even if an enterprise spends the money on repair and maintenance. The depreciable amount of an asset is determined after deducting its residual value. If the residual value is greater than the carrying amount, then depreciation is 0. Remember, depreciable amount, to calculate the depreciable amount, we deduct the residual value. Only after deducting residual value, we have to charge the depreciation. We have to calculate the depreciation. Suppose if the residual value is greater than the carrying amount, then definitely the depreciation amount will be nil. Next one is depreciation of an asset begins when it is available for use. That means if the asset is not used, no depreciation. The depreciation will start only on its usage. Next one is, generally land is considered as an asset with an unlimited useful life and therefore is not depreciated. In simple words, we can say land is a non-depreciable asset. Its life is unlimited. There is no limit on the life of the land. So that's why normally no depreciation will be provided on land. If building is there, building is depreciable asset. Here we can see buildings have a limited useful life and therefore are depreciable asset. If land and building are given, we can provide depreciation. But only land is given, no depreciation is allowed. So these are the provisions given under AS 10 regarding depreciation. Now depreciation method. We know there are so many methods of providing depreciation, but AS 10 has suggested few methods of depreciation. AS 10, a variety of depreciation method can be used to allocate depreciation amount of an asset on a systematic basis over its useful life. The main concern is depreciation should be provided on a systematic basis over the useful life of the asset. That is a requirement. So AS 10 has suggested a number of variety of methods. These methods include this SLM, straight line method. The straight line method is the method of depreciation in which results in constant charge over the useful life. The amount of depreciation will remain constant every year in case of straight line method. Then the diminishing balance method, which results in a decreasing charge over the useful life of the asset. The second method suggested by AS 10 is diminishing balance method. That means decreasing balance method. So every year the amount of depreciation will decrease over its useful life. Now third one is the units of production method, which results in a charge based on the expected use of the output. The third method is production based method. Production based method means depreciation depends on number of units produced. More units are produced, more depreciation. Less number of units are produced, less depreciation. So depreciation depends on the output number of units. These are the few methods we have explained. Apart from that, any other method? Because the method of depreciation depends on the nature of the business, the nature of the asset. The nature of the asset. We should not say always one method is applicable for any industry. No, the nature of the business, the nature of company will differ. But once a method is adopted, the same method should be continued consistently from year to year. The method of depreciation should not be changed every year. Consistency accounting concept. An enterprise must select the method that most appropriately reflect the usage of the asset over its lifetime. It depends on the management of the enterprise. The management of the enterprise has to decide which method is suitable for our business so that we can spread the depreciation throughout the useful life. Then the depreciation method must be applied constantly. Just now I told you, the method of depreciation should not be changed from year to year. Constantly it should be applied. That's it. Now retirement. Sometimes an asset has to be retired. Retired means not in use. If the asset is not in use, then this AS 10 suggests that we have to find out what is the carrying value and what is the net realizable value. Till the time it is not disposed of, we will find out whichever is lower. That means carrying amount or net realizable value. Whichever is lower, that should be recorded on retirement of the asset. Now disclosure. This is very important. What are the disclosure requirement of AS 10 regarding property, plant and equipment? So here AS 10 requires a lot of disclosure to be made by the entities. Entities means organizations, enterprises. So a lot of provisions are given regarding the disclosure. Then the financial statement should disclose for each class of property, plant and equipment. So every financial statement of every entity must disclose what? First, the measurement basis used for determining the gross carrying amount. First of all, On what basis the gross carrying amount is based? What do you mean by gross carrying amount? Without charging any depreciation. We have purchased the asset. At the time of purchasing the asset, we have paid some import duty, we have paid some taxes that should be capitalized. We have incurred the expenditure on bringing the goods, that is transportation cost, that should be capitalized. Apart from that, loading, unloading charges, insurance in transit, all these are the costs to be capitalized. Then AS10 says all the things should be disclosed. The measurement basis, how we have calculated the gross carrying amount, that should be disclosed. Secondly, the depreciation method used. Which depreciation method we have applied in calculating the depreciation, that should be disclosed in the financial statements. Thirdly, the useful lives or depreciation rates used. What is the life of the asset and what is the rate of depreciation we have applied, that should be disclosed in the financial statements. Next, the gross carrying amount and the accumulated depreciation at the beginning and end of the period. The gross carrying amount, accumulated depreciation. The gross carrying amount minus accumulated depreciation will get the net carrying amount. So net carrying amount at the beginning of the year and end of the year should be disclosed. That's what. So these are the basic things which are to be disclosed according to AS10. Now, the financial statement should also disclose. Some more points are given. First, details of property, plant and equipment pledged as security for liabilities. Sometimes a business organization will give as security the property, plant or equipment for taking a liability. Example, an enterprise wants a loan from bank. The banker is asking to give some security. So the enterprise has given as security the plant value or the building value. In that case, the disclosure in financial statement should be made regarding what are the assets given as security for taking a liability. Then the expenditure recognized in the carrying amount of an item of property, plant and equipment in the course of its construction. That means if the asset is constructed, then what are the expenditure incurred on construction of the property, plant and equipment, that should be disclosed. Thirdly, the amount of contractual commitment for the acquisition of property, plant and equipment. Contractual commitment. Contractual commitment means taking the help of a professional person. Then what are the contractual payments that should be disclosed? Lastly, the amount of assets retired from the active use and held for disposal. So what are the asset items which are retired and which are still held by the enterprise for its disposal? So these are some of the disclosures required in the section under AS10. Now, points to be noted. Last and final. Few points should be noted while recording the treatment, accounting treatment for property, plant and equipment. What are the points? First point, administration overhead and cost of opening a factory cannot be capitalized. Administration overhead nowhere related to the cost of the asset. So administrative expenses should not be capitalized. Apart from that, the cost of opening a factory should also not be capitalized unless specifically attributable to the construction of the asset. If the cost is incurred specifically for the construction of the asset, then it should be capitalized. Otherwise, not. First point. Second point, installation, testing cost and cost of structural alterations are capitalized. Asset is purchased, installation cost is incurred. This installation cost will be capitalized, will be added to the cost of the asset. Similarly, testing cost and cost of structural alterations. So these are the things should be capitalized, added to the cost of the asset. Third, interest charges paid on deferred credit terms and operating losses before commercial production cannot be capitalized. Interest charges paid on deferred credit terms. Sometimes an asset is purchased on deferred payment method. Deferred payment method like hire purchase system, installment or bank loan. A bank loan is taken to purchase the asset. So whatever charges paid to the bank, interest charges paid to the bank will not be capitalized. Will not be capitalized. Next one, spare parts. Spare parts that are not easily available in the market or which can be used only for a specific plant purchased along with plant should also be capitalized. Normally spare parts is an item of inventory. It should not be capitalized, but sometimes spare parts are not easily available. Some spare parts are specifically purchased along with the plant. In that case, the spare parts should be capitalized. Two circumstances. If the spare parts are not easily available or if the spare parts are purchased along with the purchase of plant, that means spare parts are attached with the plant, then it will be capitalized. Next one, any government subsidy or tax credit allowed towards setting up of the plant must be reduced from the cost of the plant. In some cases, government will give them subsidy on purchasing the plant or some tax rebate given, tax credit given. So this government subsidy or tax rebate that should be deducted from the cost of the plant. Example, an enterprise has purchased one plant for 10 lakh. But for purchasing this plant, the government has given a subsidy of 2 lakh. So this 2 lakh subsidy received from the government should be deducted from the cost of the plant. 10 lakh minus 2 lakh, 8 lakh. Now depreciable amount is 8 lakh. Last one, the interest charges are capitalized only for the period before the asset is ready for use. So any interest charges paid before the asset is ready for use, that will be capitalized. That will be capitalized. Once if it is already in use, then interest paid will not be capitalized. These are the points you have to remember. So this is the end of the discussion on the provisions of AS10. That is accounting for property, plant and equipment. So in 3 videos, I have tried my level best to explain you all the provisions. So watch the video not once, twice, thrice, then only you can be able to understand all the points and you can be able to write confidently in examination. Inshallah, we'll take up the next accounting standard in the next video.